Welcome to the Fast Mode podcast series. I'm Tara Nil, and with me today is Fernando Murias, Chairman and CEO of Digital Global Systems. Digital Global Systems, DGS, is a leading RF signal detection, identification, classification, and geolocation solution vendor headquartered in Northern Virginia. Since 2013, the company has issued more than 230 patents, with over 100 patents pending, helping network operators, hyperscalers, infrastructure providers, private wireless customers, and other industry players address the global industry challenge of wireless spectrum scarcity. Fernando joined DGS in 2013, bringing with him 32 years of experience in public accounting in the telecoms and government contracting sector. Welcome, Fernando. Great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Tara. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, all right. Okay. So let's zoom into our session today. Last month, DGS attended and exhibited at MWC Las Vegas 2024 at the Las Vegas Convention Center. What were some of the key highlights and takeaways from the event?
So, at this conference, like many conferences I've been to lately, there's been a very large focus on artificial intelligence and the role that it's going to play in the communications environment. And one of the things that struck me was the importance of a shift away from just focusing on large language models like ChatGPT to eliminate human intervention and cut costs, but really to try to focus more on a shift to machine learning to generate revenue from enabling additional services. And I thought that theme was very interesting and certainly appropriate.
Okay, okay. That sounds exciting. So now, speaking of AI, how does the use of AI-enabled RF awareness and machine learning contribute to more efficient and sustainable spectrum sharing?
Yes, the key with respect to RF awareness and AI and the interaction is that enhanced RF awareness really enables AI algorithms to help optimize spectrum usage from the standpoint of developing and understanding patterns of use to understanding different types of signals that could be typically in the environment at different times so that the individual or network can optimize itself by determining what services can coexist efficiently in the same spectrum and really look to have AI algorithms used to optimize the use of the spectrum by determining what signals can and services can coexist together.
So is that already taking place right now? Are operators deploying such capabilities?
No, it's finally on the radar and people understand the value of it. We're in an interesting dynamic now where we're shifting from an environment that's historically been very focused on quantity to one that's very focused on services. And so this shift to delivering services in a services environment is creating a lot of focus on innovation that's needed to enable multiple services to coexist in the same network.
So, you were talking about the RF awareness. So once you have this awareness, can we like reallocate spectrum in real time, or is it something, would this help to optimize network, in the long run? How does it work?
Yes, clearly RF awareness, not just looking for open space, but understanding the signal characteristics that exist on a detailed level. With our technology at DGS, we actually are not just looking at power and time and frequency. We're looking at 52 different signal characteristics to determine whether or not signals can coexist with other signals without creating interference. RF awareness to determine if there is interference, what's the source of interference, so that it can be in real time mitigated and thereby optimizing the spectrum use. So it's a combination of determining how best to use the spectrum and also determining if there's interference, how best to mitigate that interference.
So I guess like it's going to help in network slicing.
So network slicing is really, I guess, the prelude to spectrum sharing. And it doesn't necessarily help with spectrum slicing. It helps with all communications in the network, but spectrum slicing is really more of a way to deal with delivering different services with certain priorities, whereas spectrum sharing is the ability for those services to coexist within the same frequencies at the same time. So it's a little bit different, but I believe that spectrum sharing, dynamic spectrum sharing, is not only coming very quickly, but also imperative to enable the services that are expected with 5G and 6G, etc.
Wow, interesting. Okay, so zooming into enterprise connectivity, as enterprises become the next largest consumers of wireless connectivity, what is DGS's role in ensuring these businesses have access to the necessary spectrum for high bandwidth services?
Great question. So the key in understanding the difference between enterprise uses of the spectrum and just public use is that enterprises have not just one mission critical service potentially happening, but multiple mission critical services that need to be deployed, sometimes very close together, but also the criticality of their mission and use of the network can change dramatically depending on the scenario and the environment. And so, from an enterprise use standpoint, ensuring that critical mission uh, services are able to be deployed, um, understanding and a key real-time awareness of the spectrum is very important. And so, technology like ours to, in real time at the edge, be able to process and be aware of what's happening in the RF environment to deliver those signals is really critical.
Okay, interesting. So, building on that, what does DGS see as the biggest, some of the biggest challenges in spectrum sharing as demand for wireless connectivity continues to grow across both B2B and B2C sectors?
Yes. So, the first, I think people need to understand that the challenges that we're facing are because spectrum is finite, and the communication spectrum at the lower end of the spectrum, where we all talk on our cell phones, etc., is extremely crowded. And in order um, for everyone to be able to deliver the services that are coming effectively, there needs to be a sharing of spectrum because there is a reallocation and repurposing of spectrum by the government that is being considered. And historically, the government has always just reallocated spectrum and walked away and sold those licenses to the highest bidder, and that's been their spectrum to utilize. Going forward, as was indicated in the National Spectrum Strategy paper last year, the government believes that spectrum sharing is really the most economically effective way to move forward. If you look at the spectrum that's being analyzed for 5G services in the upcoming auction that's expected, early next year, 3.1 to 3.45 gigahertz. The government has done a very detailed analysis. The PATS committee did years of worth of work to determine that dynamic spectrum sharing was important, and the suggestion and the way to go, because it was going to be prohibitively expensive for the government to actually vacate that spectrum, which is where the fixed and airborne radar sits for the DoD and commercial usage. So, the biggest challenge that I see with dynamic spectrum sharing is getting past the misinformation that it's going to take 7 years to develop that technology, that nobody's ready for it, and although it may be the most economical way forward, it's something we're not ready for, and it'll create chaos. And I think there are certain firms that are pushing that narrative because it's in their best interest to have the status quo from a financial perspective. But the reality is that the technology for spectrum sharing exists today. It does take several years to develop, but we've been building it for the last 8 years. We have it. We've demonstrated it at DGS, and so getting past the misinformation that although it's recognized that spectrum sharing is the most cost-effective solution and path forward, and also the most or the least expensive due to the fact that um, the government doesn't have to vacate spectrum, find a home for the signals that it's displacing. There's a lot of information or misinformation out there that the technology is too far away to impose that as an element of the repurposing of spectrum today. And That's just simply not true. As I mentioned earlier, DGS has technology that enables dynamic spectrum sharing on multiple dimensions, including very detailed signal characteristics. And this technology is here today. And so the misinformation by those sectors that have a financial interest in the status quo is to me the largest obstacle that we face in moving this forward.
So, in maybe months and years to come, when this technology starts to go into implementation, oh, do you expect any implications on operator monetization or revenues?
Yes, I think that dynamic spectrum sharing is going to enable multiple different services that are coming with 5G and 6G that require low latency and high reliability, uh, and um, and being able to deliver that in the communications environment will drive a lot of new services to consumers, but it will also generate a lot of revenue for enterprises that are hosting these networks.
Okay, so I think yeah, we sort of covered quite some bits. I have another last question. These the efforts in spectrum sharing and the spectrum optimization. Do you see these initiatives across the globe, or is this quite exclusive to DGS?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the challenge that governments have in balancing national security and commercialization of their spectrum is something that's not just a U.S. issue; it's a global issue. And every country is responsible for determining how to create that balance between national security and economy and economic impact. And every country is facing the same issue around limitations on spectrum use. So the US is being looked at very carefully by countries like India and other countries in EMEA that are facing the same issue to determine how effectively they can deploy spectrum sharing, because spectrum sharing enables, as I mentioned earlier, faster utilization of the spectrum to drive new services and minimizes the cost of displacing government services that are currently residing in that potentially repurposed spectrum. So this is a global issue, not just a U.S. issue.
All right. Okay, that's interesting. So I guess, yep, that's really insightful on this topic, and yeah, I think we have come to the end of the session. So thank you, Fernando, for joining us and sharing these valuable insights, and also DGS's role in driving innovation in spectrum management, as well as your experiences at the MWC Las Vegas.
Thank you, Tara. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed our conversation.
Okay, likewise. Okay, and for everyone tuning in, thank you for listening. And if you want to learn more, visit www.digitalglobalsystems.com and follow us for more updates and insights as we continue to uncover the latest in technology and telecommunications. See you in our next session.